What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode, and we are talking about the 2022 NFL Draft. We are going division by division, and we're talking about which team won the draft in the division, which team lost the draft in the division. We're going to talk about some of the picks and how they kind of fit into each system. So this is always one of my favorite podcasts to do. I love talking about the NFL Draft, and I love kind of getting an early picture of how this is going to shake out the future of not only this coming year, but the next 5-10 years for that particular team and that particular player. Before we jump on, make sure you guys click like and subscribe. Help support the show, man. Check out my Patreon. Even if it's just a few bucks, man, it helps the show out. It helps me out. And I always greatly appreciate, every comment and everything you guys do for me. We just hit over 2,000 subscribers. So I appreciate you guys sincerely. So let's jump to it, man. We've talked about the AFC North already. We're going to be talking about the AFC East today. And when I look at it, man, there's a clear-cut winner, and I know they had a lot of draft capital, and it's not because they had a lot of draft capital, but the winner of this division has to be the New York Jets. I know they had 3 first-round picks in your own. Of course, they had a good draft, but I thought they got very good value, especially with their 26th pick. But let's go and jump into it, man. They had the 4th overall pick, and they get the guy that they wanted, man. They wanted Sauce Gardner very badly, and they get him because the Houston Texans go ahead and take Stingley at number 3 right in front of them. So they get Sauce Gardner, who by all means looks like a shutdown guy. We saw what he did at Cincinnati, and basically you just kind of erased one side of the field. So he does bring that stuff to the table, which is fantastic. And then we look at the 10th pick. It seemed like maybe a little bit of a reach, but and kind of, looking about it retrospectively, wide receivers started to be taken really, really quickly. So they go ahead and nab Garrett Wilson, who has drawn a lot of comparisons to like an Odell Beckham type player, where he's just kind of lightning in a bottle, right? Does a lot of things well, and I think he's going to pair with Elijah Moore very, very well. I think he's going to be a fun one. Just surrounding a young quarterback in Zach Wilson with this much talent is always a great thing to do. And then we see with the first in the first round as well, with the 26th pick, they go ahead and get Jermaine Johnson II, who a lot of people said was the best pure edge rusher in this year's draft. He's just the most natural guy at doing it. He can bend, he can bully you, he can rip you, he can swim you, he can spin you. There's nothing this guy can't do. So the fact that this guy was potentially, it would have been a reach, but there's rumors that he might go top 5, top 6. There was a lot of rumors that he was going to go top 10, and the fact that he fell to 26, and we know the Jets loved him, and the fact they were able to get him is just superb. You know what I mean? They got their guys. They go in the second round. They go and get Breece Hall, who I know in this current day and age, we look at running backs. They have a short shelf life, and we don't appreciate them after they're done with a rookie deal. Let's get rid of them, and I understand that, and I get the financial part of it and everything. But Breece Hall is a perfect modern day back. He can absolutely hit you a home run. He can absolutely get you 4 yards of carry. He can absolutely catch 50, 60 balls a season. He kind of reminds me of, maybe a Matt Forte, how he's going to kind of play out with New York is, he's going to be a guy who just catches a lot of balls. They might not be like fancy type catches. And like, it might not be they're splitting them out wide and just letting them work, but I think he actually is capable of that, which just helps broaden your horizon. To pair him with Michael Carter, man, this Jets offense is starting to look really, really good. If Becton comes back and he's healthy, there's a lot of really good things. And also, speaking of offensive talent, they go and get Jeremy Ruckert, tight end from Ohio State, who was one of the better tight ends in a pretty weak tight end class. But it's just another weapon to get to your young quarterback. And that's what you got to do, man. You got to surround your young quarterback with that much talent. But they also bolstered up that defense with 2 great first-round picks there. So I really like what the New York Jets did. When I go to who I thought had the second best draft, it was a little bit of a tough one, but I ended up going with the Buffalo Bills. I love the pick of Elam at the end of the first round. They slide out, they get him, a physical corner. We don't really know how Tre'Davious White's going to come back. We know that he's an absolute elite corner, but we don't know how he's going to come back, how healthy he's going to be. So the fact they grabbed him to at least play opposite, because they lost Levi Wallace this offseason. I love that pick. I think he's a guy who could play pretty soon. They go out and get James Cook, who, when you kind of look at it, you're like, he's not going to be a 20 carry or 20 touch guy. But I think that kind of works out, man. I don't know if they'll end up keeping Zach Moss, but they still like Devin Singletary. They just don't want him to be the only back, right? But I think Cook's one of those guys where you get him 12 touches a game, maybe 15, and just let it and have it in a variety of ways. Give him an end around, split him out, give him, 3 catches that way, get him a catch or 2 out of the backfield, give him a few carries. He's more than a third down back, and I don't want to, sleep on him and just be like, oh yeah, he's a Danny Woodhead or something like that. Cause he's more than that. And I think he can become even more than that. So I really like that pick. I thought it was a fun one, and it fits because after Breece Hall was gone, Kenneth Walker was there, and I was like, I don't think he fits what the Bills do. He's not much of a gun runner, but I think Cook is. So then they go in the third round. They get Terrell Bernard, linebacker from Baylor, who's a guy who is going to add a little bit of depth. We saw last year the middle of their defense kind of got beat up a little bit. They know they had a hard time stopping the run last year, so I think Bernard's going to be a guy who can kind of help that. And then in the 5th round, they go ahead and get Khalil Shakir, which is the wide receiver from Boise State, who was probably the best pure slot receiver just coming out of the draft right now. Now, whether he's going to be the best slot receiver to come out of this draft 5 years from now, I don't know. But he's a guy that can kind of immediately start eating some of those Cole Beasley reps. He's a guy who can work there, work the underneath, let Gabriel Davis and Stephon Diggs, work in the middle over the top. So I think he's a guy that can help pretty soon when this is a win now team. I mean, not that it's an old team, but it is a win now team. We jumped to the New England Patriots, who I thought had the 3rd best draft in the division. They had kind of a strange pick in the 1st round. You see what I did there? They go and get Cole Strange, the guard from Tennessee Chattanooga. Was a pretty interesting one. It was definitely one of those ones where people were surprised to hear his name go in the 1st round, but he's also a guy who just fits the Patriots, right? He's a versatile guy. I actually, in my draft preview, I actually said Cole Strange made sense for New England. I just didn't think it'd be in the 1st round. I thought it'd be 2nd or 3rd round, but they go and get this guy. I think he's going to immediately fit in, and it gives that New England always loves flexibility. The best ability is availability, and I think Cole Strange brings that. In the 2nd round, they get an absolute burner in Tyquan Thornton, wide receiver from Baylor. This dude can absolutely get up and down the field. So he's a guy that can really take that top off, keep those safeties at home, make those corners play a little bit off. And I think he has the ability. He showed flashes to kind of develop into a little bit more of a route runner. We just got to see if he kind of continues to grow. In the 3rd round, they got one of my favorite players is Marcus Jones, cornerback from Houston. They lost Gunner. They just got the return man. This guy was the best return man in college football last year. He's fun to watch. This guy is undersized, but he is just one of those. I love those undersized corners who play with a chip on their shoulder, and that's Marcus Jones. Some of the plays that he made on the ball, this dude is got skill. And he's just, again, he brings that energy. He brings an edge to the team. He might not be the biggest in physical stature, but he's got a huge heart. And I love the way he plays. And they go in the 4th round, and they also continue to bolster up the corner position with Jack Jones, cornerback from Arizona State. So, you clearly see where the Patriots priorities laid in this year's draft. The team that lost the draft in the AFC East is the Miami Dolphins, but they also, they didn't just not have the picks. They got somebody like a Tyreek Hill, who is an absolute game changer. He's one of the best receiver, if not the best receiver in the league. So they didn't have a 1st and 2nd round pick, but they go out and get a Channing Tindall. Tindall is one of those dudes who was one of the Georgia had so much firepower on defense, and he was one of those guys that kind of flew under the radar. One of my favorite things about him is we saw in the national championship game, him and Nakobe Dean had a little bit of a misunderstanding. We saw Nakobe Dean bark at him on the field, and instead of putting his head down and just going we're equals, don't talk to me that way, or getting in his own head, the next play, he has this huge monstrous play. And I thought it was just so perfect. And it's the kind of player he is. That's the player he's been his entire career at Georgia. So I really like that pick. And they go out in the 4th round, and they get Eric, I might be pronouncing this wrong, Azukama, who is a 6'2" receiver from Texas Tech. I've seen comparisons to Dante Moncrief, and I think that kind of makes sense because he's not just going to work in the intermediate, but he's not necessarily a burner to get you down the field, but he's going to work in a lot of that. Like, I think he averaged about 15 yards per reception. He's a guy who can he's not going to be a superstar in this league, but he's going to be a guy who's in the league for a long time. And I think that kind of fits what with what Miami needs right now. They lost Parker, who would kind of work in that range. So I think Zukama can do those types of things for Miami. So it's going to be really, really interesting. As a whole, I thought this draft was pretty fun. I don't think any team really fell flat on their face. A lot of teams didn't have first round picks because of trading for veteran players. We'll kind of see how that works out. A lot of trades more than normal, I feel like. So it's going to be interesting how this all plays out. But I thought everybody in the AFC East did pretty well. But I'm really excited to see what the Jets do. They've had back-to-back good drafts. It's going to be interesting, man. They've been in the basement for a long time. So, is this their resurrection? That's to be seen, but I'm excited to kind of watch the journey of the New York Jets. So please, guys, let me know what you guys think. Who do you think won the draft in the AFC East? Whose draft did you like in the NFL? Drop in the comments, click like, subscribe. Like I said, check out my Patreon. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time.